John, happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween, buddy.
It,
Good
it
to see you.
is, it
Yeah.
is, it, I got to tell you, it's my favorite time of the year.
Yeah.
And I just love everything about it. Even the shirt, do you think it's a little black and orange? Is it a little pumpkinish? No.
Yeah, it's a little bit, it's very U of I colors. You got the
Yeah,
University of Illinois colors going on there. But
that's
yeah,
right.
the orange and the black hat is very Halloweeny.
Well, tonight we're not going to talk about the typical horror
Mm.
movies, right? Your top 10, you got The Shining, you got Jaws, you got Silence of the Lambs, and all these classic ones. And there's a lot that's been said on it. But
Mm.
tonight we're talking about the B horror movie. These are movies that were not huge blockbusters, didn't have the big budget. Just like a B movie, you have this for the horror genre. And not only that, there's a whole kind of culture around this genre that I think is just so much fun. And I want to tell our audience here, one of the whole reasons that John and I became friends is this genre, the B horror movie. And specifically, John, if you could show people your shirt.
Oh yeah. So
This
I'll point down a little bit here.
yeah.
This is my original Svengoolie shirt with Svengoolie, who's a horror I wouldn't
So
say I say a horror host, but hosts a show in Chicago, has for since like 1979 in Chicago, and obviously Scott and I are both very big fans of
I,
his, and there's a whole story behind it.
exactly. And for our viewers, who is this guy, Svengoolie? Because
Yeah,
when I moved to Chicago, I had no idea, and it was only through
yeah,
you, John, that I was introduced to him, and
right. Well,
it's a whole community of like Svengoolie
yeah.
lovers.
Yeah, and I'll try to be as accurate as I can because there's some people out there that are just like fanatic Svengoolie fans. But you wouldn't know when I first met you in the early 2000s, you wouldn't know who Svengoolie was because he wasn't nationally syndicated. He was basically only here in Chicago, maybe parts of like Northwest Indiana. So unless you lived in Chicago, you wouldn't know because he was such a like very like hyper regional
Yeah.
character. And his name is Rich Coes, and he's a local Chicago boy. He went to Maine East High School here in Park Ridge, Illinois. He went to Northwestern University to do his undergrad, and he got into broadcasting. And he worked in radio for a long time. Met this guy named Jerry G. Bishop, who was the original Svengoolie.
Yeah.
Jerry G. Bishop quit in 1978 and gave the show to Rich, who turned it into the Son of Svengoolie. For a number of years before he got rid of the son of and just became Svengoolie. And he started that in 1979, and now 2022, he's nationally syndicated. He's here in Vegas. I watch him on MeTV here in Las
Yeah.
Vegas. He's on in every Saturday night, and he's just famous for like those very local horror hosts like Elvira that you're very aware of,
Mhm.
that do like these sort of campy shows, very slapstick, tongue-in-cheek, low budget. And they show a lot of these B horror movies that no one's ever heard of that really started in the 50s as like drive-in movies and kind of really became popular in the 50s and the 60s and a little bit in the 70s. And his shows are just so funny. Like, he's just an amazing guy. And Scott and I had the privilege and one of our other co-founders, I mentioned, had the privilege of meeting him. Gosh, what was it, back in 2018? I guess it must have been
2016, buddy.
2016. My God, it's that long
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah.
We actually had the pleasure of throwing rubber chickens at the coffin, which, if you see his show, is the part at the end where these rubber chickens get thrown at his coffin that he goes into. And
Yeah.
that's just a really brief history of who Rich Coes and Svengoolie is. Obviously, I'm a massive fan. My wife, Carla, is a massive fan. And he just got me into this whole genre of horror films.
And likewise, John, you got me into it. Although I
Ah,
got to say, I didn't know Svengoolie when I first moved to Chicago. But when you described it, I'd call you on a Saturday night, and you're like, "Yeah, we're watching Sven," and I didn't know what you were talking about. And it sounded like I thought it was some like Nordic show or something. I didn't really know, and then it just sounded like Sven.
Nordic
I don't know. I was like,
show.
"What's John doing on Saturday night?" I don't know.
It's
I think you
Svengoolie.
and Carla were trying to be polite and just say you didn't want to hang out. We're watching Svengoolie. I'm like, that's code name for like just don't answer the phone. And I would again start going to John's, and Carla and John would host me on Saturday night, and we'd have this tradition of watching Svengoolie and ordering either pizza and tacos. And then when we started Mesh and Bone, we had the alcohol there, and and Carla would make amazing drinks. And I think obviously those were special times, but in terms of the show, there's just something, there's a magic to these B movies, and especially the B horror movies. And when I was growing up, my brother and I watched, over in California, we watched Elvira in the early and mid 80s. And for those of you who know that Elvira, she's the mistress of the dark, very well endowed up top, and not afraid to show it. Even as a kid, you had this mad crush on her, and as many people did. And it's just really part of that LA kind of area culture. Everyone knew her, and then subsequently she was in certain like Hollywood movies. But I think nationally she's pretty famous too. But I think, John, it's kind of that combination of Chicago meets California, but with this love of these movies. And what is it about the B as opposed to, let's say, a Jaws or Silence of the Lambs, or one of the blockbusters?
Yeah, they're kind of these movies that, they're not really super scary. Let's face it. I mean, they're more kind of campy. They're always the same. They're always pretty low budget, right? Yeah. They don't have any real famous actors in them, and they're kind of like comedy slash horror like films, and they're just hugely entertaining. I mean, some of them are actually pretty good. Like some are like legit. Like there's a few that I have on my list that are actually really good, that try to get some special effects. They had a little bit of a budget, but they're just kind of fun to watch because they're not like today, right? Today's horror films are just I mean, it's just a lot. Like you have to be into it because there's like blood and just like over the top graphic violence, and some of it's like just super scary shit, like weird, like those are legit gonna like freak you out movies. And I like the horror films that are either campy or more implied, right? Kind of like the Alfred Hitchcock films. But these kind of films, these B movies, are just hilarious to watch. They're just so funny. You can't help but just enjoy them for what they are.
I totally agree. And I would encourage anyone, especially on a Saturday or Sunday, when there's these like kind of off times, right? Not a football game going on. That's when they'll show them, right? When the cost is low. Back in the old days, that's when you'd see that. And then you'd see, Kung Fu TV, all these different, like kind of the random parts, these filler programs.
I mean, let's face it. If it weren't for like people like Svengoolie and Elvira and other small market, kind of larger market, but regional hosts, these movies would never get seen.
Oh yeah,
and like no one would ever see these movies. So I mean, thankfully for them, they bring them out to the public. Like, hey, check out this movie, Bucket of Blood. I mean, you're like, what? And you're like, they bring these movies out and people get to see them, and like, oh my god, I had no idea this existed.
Exactly. And I think, well, some of the things that we liked about him, and we talk about this and wanted to share this with you, is as opposed to when you have, it's kind of, what's that old saying, he who has the gold makes the rules. When you have massive Hollywood productions and studios and investment groups behind them, a huge production, right, as you mostly see in these blockbusters, there's almost, you can't veer from the script, right, unless you're the all-star director. But most of the times it's a formula, and they're out there and they got to recoup this massive investment. But with the B movies, usually have a director. A lot of it is funded, it's a passion project. And so it's very unique that you can get the vision, the singular vision of a director. And sometimes it doesn't go well, as we see, like some of the best or the worst movies. But I think that's what I like about it. It's there's something authentic. There's something, even though there's no CGI, they can't afford the special effects. It almost makes it, and I won't say they're like so bad they're good, but they're There's
Yeah,
something like it's like
I'll
a
give you,
childhood play or something.
I'll
There's an
give you,
innocence about it, you know?
there is. I'll give you a great example of exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah.
There's a movie from 1959 called The Killer Shrews.
Yeah.
You have to see it,
Just
right?
right there,
And
right?
so,
Yeah.
the killer shrews. The killer shrews were dogs, like they were dogs. They put like fur on top of, and they taped it to them, and they ran around and chased people. And those were the killer shrews.
Yeah.
Like it was ridiculous. It's like
Yeah.
a dog that has like a fake like coat over it, and they somehow got him to tape it on. These dogs ran around and chased a guy, and that's all they had to work with. They had no
Yeah.
money. They had no, but I mean, they improvised, and it's
Yeah.
terrible, but it's so bad. It's awesome, and
Yeah.
it's the funniest thing. It's
Well,
just so great.
but there's something authentic, I think, as well in it. You know, and
Yeah.
some of the actors are not fully trained. There's no ego behind them.
No.
Maybe not a lot of skill either, but
No.
you could see they're trying. You could
It's
see
it's kind
everyone is trying.
it's kind of like watching like a student film, right? Like they're
Yes.
just trying to be so serious and so
Yeah.
legit and trying to push so hard, and you kind of see it, and maybe in some cases like someone owed someone's brother who's a producer a
Yeah.
favor, so they made this movie for him, and they got really scrappy about how they made shrews. Well, how do we make a shrew? Well, I have no money. Hey,
Yeah.
you have a dog? Yeah, like 8 of them. Well, let's just put some fur on them and make them run
Yeah.
around. That'll be the
Yeah.
shrew. I mean, you can't help but love that kind of ingenuity that they
Yeah.
make, try to make these films just so great to watch.
I mean, to me, you could almost compare it. And I won't say I'm a sports fan, but I love college football way more than
Yeah,
the
there
NFL
you go.
because there's a heart there. You
It's a
know,
good
they're not
analogy.
there-
Yeah.
you're just like, they're not like, hey, I'm just about me, about my $millions contract. And I look at these B movies as somewhat the same. There's something in that innocence or that student that's hard to deny. And although, yeah, hey, for John, when we were starting Mesh and Bone, we didn't have a lot of money, and so you
No,
create stuff,
no,
but the stuff you create comes from it's unfiltered. The spirit is
it
unfiltered,
is.
and people can see that. And I think that's why you have all these horror conventions going, from California
Oh
to New
yeah.
York, where you see it a little bit with Comic-Con and some of the other kind of cosplay and conventions, but especially with the B movies, it's a cult. I mean,
It
yeah, and I'm a
is.
part of it. I'm proud to say it.
Yeah, I mean, what's amazing now, like even Rich Coe's Svengoolie, he was at New
Yeah,
York Comic Con this year,
yeah,
and he had a massive line
oh
every
yeah,
day that he signed autographs. And before Scott, when we met him, okay, let me just tell our listeners a quick
yeah,
story. So I thought it'd be super cool if we could meet Svengoolie. And Scott and I talked about it, like, hey, why don't we just? It'd be great to get Svengoolie and maybe give him a bottle of Mesh and Bone, and I'll do like a custom label for it. So I did. I made a custom label of Svengoolie's
oh
face
yeah,
on a bottle, and I thought, well, I'll drop it off at their studio just so he could have it. Like he didn't even have to, just to see if
for
he'll
sure.
take it from us. I literally emailed the show and got an email right back from the producer. Hey, why don't you just come on by? I'm like, what? Yeah, come on by about 4 o'clock, and you can meet Svengoolie, throw some chickens. I'm like, oh my God. And
Yeah,
we literally showed up,
yeah,
and I thought we were just going to meet him in the lobby. Nope, they brought us all in the back. We went back to the studio. We met him. We got to hang out for the whole show. They were the nicest people in the
so
world.
nice.
So nice and so accommodating for a bunch of idiots who just showed up, and they were great. But I think that's kind of the spirit of how
Yeah,
genuine and authentic that genre
yeah,
really is, and the people that do it.
yeah,
That meant a lot to me, and I'll always be a diehard Svengoolie fan, just for that reason alone. Besides for the fact that I started watching him when I was 8 years old,
yeah.
huge fan.
Well, I think so. He becomes a part of your life, and he was a part of our lives with Carla every Saturday at 7 or 9,
Yeah,
whatever the time was back then. But
yep.
it's I think you touched on something. There's a sense of community, and I see it a lot with the you saw it with the kind of the Dungeons and Dragons or kind of live action role playing, these subworlds where there's these tacit kind of codes of culture. But the thing that I saw uh, with these subworlds is an amazing amount of respect, all
Yeah.
bound by a sense of like passion. Like everyone respected the genre, and no one was mocking anyone. I've never, I've been to so many other parties where they're posturing and whatnot. You could be anything
Mm.
you want. It's truly this
Yeah.
sublime kind of experience, because they're just accepting. And I think that's what I liked about it. Was it's kind of a freak show, and everyone's a freak, and you're celebrating that. I mean, that's kind of
Yeah.
cool.
No, I think you see that a lot, like at the Comic Cons, especially,
Yeah,
right? Like it's kind of a celebrating people's weirdness and
yeah,
uniqueness, and by that's kind of the spirit of that whole culture. And with Svengoolie, he just is. I think it's because he's just a great guy.
yeah,
Like his show is funny, and his characters like Kerwin the chicken and Doug
yeah,
who plays and sings the music. Like there's something very genuine about that. There's
yeah,
something that's very lovable about it, and he's just really good about it. And he's very knowledgeable. And his show is just like, I mean, his recipe, his formula has been working for so many years, over 40 years now. I was
yeah.
actually, Carl and I were at his 40th anniversary celebration with my little Svengoolie in Chicago, and people just have this genuine love for the guy,
Yeah,
and not just for him, but for the show.
yeah,
So it's very kind of very takes in everybody. It's
yeah.
inclusive. It just
I
takes in
think,
everybody.
and that's it. And there's a respect. And when we met him, he was just the nicest guy, almost like
Oh
had a
yeah.
grandpa style, where he just was so friendly. And I mean, we were just kind of lurkers off the street,
Yeah.
handing him booze. I mean, that was just sketchy at best. But I
We
think
were.
you'll see that. I know that with Elvira, she's a celebrated figure in many different communities.
Oh
She'll
yeah.
be in various parades from San Francisco to LA, and again, more of a national figure now. And I think just people really starting to understand that there's something special going on. And I think you saw that with like Comic-Con, and at first it was like for the only hardcore. Then I think people are like, hey, this is a really nice community, and I want to be a
Yeah.
part of it somehow. And I was just at Comic-Con in San Diego back in July, and you could feel it. You
That's
didn't
right. You were
feel
there.
like anyone was judging you. And you
Yeah.
didn't feel like anyone was just you're not judging other people. It's really a special place. So, but
Yeah.
John, as we get into we talked about the B horror movie genre, what makes it special, kind of the culture around it, getting into the actual heart of.
Yeah.
So, what we can tell our audience here, hey, if you're new to the genre or you have some that you haven't seen in a while, John is our resident expert here, who's going to give us some of the top B
It's
horror
yeah.
movies.
There's so
Yeah, there's
many.
so
I
many.
mean,
So
it's crazy, but there's a couple I would point out. I'm looking through my notes here. There's a couple I would point out. I mentioned The Killer Shrews, which is just
yeah,
hilarious, a must see. There's another movie, Vincent Price, who's no small actor. Vincent Price was in some pretty serious films. I think everyone knows that actor's name. Usually,
yeah.
Vincent Price, people kind of know his name, right? He
on
was in a
on
movie
Michael
called
Jackson's Thriller, right? Like
Exactly. He was
if you
the
didn't know,
voice, right? If you didn't
that's
know the
the
voice,
voice.
but he did a movie called The Tingler,
Oh
which sounds
man,
like some kind of
yeah. We won't
adult
go there.
toy, right? But no, dude, seriously, The Tingler is an amazing movie. You have to see
Oh
it. I
yeah.
know you're going to see it now
Oh
because you're
yeah.
like going, ooh,
Yeah.
dirty. No, it's
Yeah.
not a porn. It's to be called The Tingler, and it's amazing movie. Definitely see it. It was actually a movie that came out in the late 50s, and it was by this famous director whose name is not coming to my head. But they literally, when they opened the movie in LA, they actually put vibrating boxes underneath a bunch of different
Yeah.
seats. And then when the Tingler came out, they hit the switch, and people's like got a vibration in their chair. It was a very it was a very visceral experience they created. But the
Visceral,
Tingler,
for
the
sure.
Tingler is a must see. There's a great movie I love from 1954 called Them. It's about giant ants that attack. I think it's San Francisco. I forgot what city it is. Or is it New York? It's an amazing movie of these giant ants that come from the desert that are hit by nuclear waste and they become giant. and the special effects are awful, but it's really funny. It's a great movie. Another one, another insect movie called Tarantula from 1955. Another amazing Svengoolie classic about giant spiders that's super creepy. And then I just watched this one from 1973 that is just unbelievable, called The Satanic Rites of Dracula. And it was by this company called Hammer Films, which is based out of London, and they made a bunch of films with Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing. And The Satanic Rites of Dracula, another amazing hair, amazing like 70s clothing, but a great movie. The Satanic Rites of Dracula is a great one, and I will promise I will add some more to our social media posts. I've got like 20 more. I've got like 20 more that I won't talk about, but there's a few that you can start with. And I would also recommend watching Svengoolie on MeTV wherever you live. You can check the schedule. You can find them. You will love them.
You can also, there's the app, right? If you have
there's the Svengoolie app.
Download 100%. The app and you can watch Svengoolie for free. I do that. And it's really a unique cultural experience. That's all it
is amazing. It's a unique experience.
Yeah. And at first you'll be like, okay, who's this guy? Whatever. But the more you watch it, you'll see his magic, and it's very subtle, but it's very welcoming.
Yeah. I don't know if we can see it, but here is a picture.
Oh man.
Me and Scott and Svengoolie, and little French Kevin is right behind us. And there's the bottle we gave Sven.
That's a great shot, John. I'm so stoked you have that. And you notice the bottle. That's an original.
Yeah,
John
the bottle
Bouvet
that bottle was there. And actually, I'll have to share the video, Scott, because he actually put our bottle on the air.
Yeah.
And I remember because it was the very first time he ever showed the original Godzilla. And that was our shochu from Japan. And it was with Godzilla. It was a perfect timing.
It was. It just was for us starting this company. It was like hitting prime time, and it was so cool to see that. I remember that.
It was definitely a bucket list. Definitely for sure.
Bucket list. Well,
absolutely.
Now, John, do you have any Halloween tradition? So it's Friday before Halloween on Monday.
Yeah.
Anything you do every year?
We used to, back when we were younger, we used to throw a Halloween party. Before I met you, Scott, actually, we used to throw a Halloween party.
Okay, that's
every
good.
Year for
I never got invited, so I was like,
no, you weren't. It was when I met you, we were.
you were done.
The Halloween parties. Yeah, we were done with the Halloween parties. But we had a Halloween party every year for about 7 years. I will say, traditionally, Carla loves to decorate, so we have Halloween decorations all over the place. We've got our patio; it's got lights on it, so she loves to decorate for Halloween. This year, actually tomorrow, not Halloween, but tomorrow, we're going to see a double feature at Red Rock Casino Resort of my favorite like Universal monster movie is Creature of the Black Lagoon, then. And we're also seeing the Claude Rains version of Phantom of the Opera. So we're going to a double feature tomorrow at Red Rock Casino Resort. They're going to play both of them tomorrow. So we're going to do that. And then Halloween, Halloween's a work day for me. So I got to work during the day, but I don't know. We'll have some trick-or-treaters and have some candy. But I think between, Svengoolie, the kind of horror movies, scary movies, that's kind of it. Now, I suppose you're going to some kind of epic blowout party.
No,
I'm sure you are.
Listen. My epic blowout party. It begins at 5 p.m. and ends at 7:30. And I take my wheat germ, so I'll be regular. It's guys
some prune juice.
Those days are gone.
Shots of prune juice.
I will say this: in the heyday of my party life, every year I will watch, including this year too, Ichabod Crane, Disney's production of
I love
the Legend of Sleepy Hollow.
Is that the animated version?
This is the animated version. And I've seen, there's a version in 1980. Then there was Johnny Depp in Sleepy Hollow, version, which was amazing as well.
Yeah, it was good. The Tim Burton version.
Tim Burton nailed it, right?
Yeah.
But the animated version from Disney
It's
came out
awesome.
in the 49, and I got to tell you,
It's scary. It's
it's
scary.
I totally agree. So let me tell you, John knows I love books, I love literature. The book by Washington Irving, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, is unbelievable. It's literally maybe 80 pages. It's a very short book.
Which is good enough for me to read.
Yeah, it's
Right, 80
good.
pages.
But I tell you this, there's a reason that that book has lasted. And it is no joke. It is unbelievable. And the Disney production with Ichabod Crane has Bing Crosby singing the
Oh,
songs
that's
of
right.
Ichabod.
That's right.
And I just
That's
tell
right.
everyone, now the guys who did the animation, there's the last scene, I won't give any spoilers, but
Yeah.
basically it's the crescendo, it's the final
Mm.
scenes of the movie. It gets trippy. So if you're taking substances or you're drunk, it's gonna freak you out. And or just watch it if you're not on it. But I tell you, it's really well done. It's just not for
Yeah.
kids. It is just spend 20 some minutes. I guarantee you it'll get you in the Halloween spirit. And I bought it. So I'm watching it. I've been watching it every day this week, just little bits here and there. So that's
It is.
my
It
all of
is
it.
that's a good one. I haven't seen that, Scott, in
Oh, dude, I'm
years.
telling you. It
So
is. I tell everyone who's listening, do me a favor. Just do it and then write to us and tell you, oh, Scott, you owe me 20 minutes of my life back. But I guarantee you won't. I guarantee you won't. But in
that's
any case,
awesome. I'm gonna watch it now. I'm gonna go check it out.
I tell you, and another one that Tim Burton did is Ed Wood, I believe.
Oh yeah, Ed Wood. Yeah, but the director.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that was about a guy who does, I think it is the
Yep.
director who did Plan 9 from Outer Space,
Yeah.
which is all about a very bad horror movie,
Horrible
science
movie,
fiction
right.
kind of horror movie.
Yep. Yeah.
But it really gives you a sense of that B movie production
Absolutely.
culture. So highly recommend that one
It is.
to get a kind of that a more modern interpretation of that. But John, I guess again, please have an amazing
Yeah,
Saturday
buddy.
night tomorrow with a double
Yeah, man.
feature.
Yeah,
I'll be
I
watching
will.
Ichabod Crane, everyone. And let
Nice.
me just say this other story. When I lived in New York, I was at okay, I'm just gonna tell guys, we have a little bit of time because John, am I
Go
going
ahead.
way
Go ahead.
over time here?
Tell the story.
I
Go
gotta
ahead.
tell
Go
the
ahead.
story. Okay. And I was a fan, but I didn't really know a lot of it when I read Washington Irving. I didn't quite know where Sleepy Hollow was. I knew it was in the Northeast, right? I thought probably near Boston or whatever, because I was thinking colonial, pilgrims
Right.
and stuff. And just the way that the land was described in there, very lush and all that.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was near New York. So I'm selling booze. John and I were tasting right during this time, and I was tasting out in New York, and I'm at a bar, or I'm not, no, I'm at a liquor store, and I arrive and their owner's there, and it said oh, this is a Sleepy Hollow Liquors, and I'm like, oh, so this is really cool. So it's after that book, one day I'd like to go to Sleepy Hollow. And he's like, man, you're in Sleepy Hollow. And I just freaked out. I was like, I cut my tasting short. I was like, okay, I want to see everything. And there's the old church, there's the bridge, everything is there. So Sleepy Hollow is actually about an hour or so north of New York City, right? So it's pretty close.
I remember when that is awesome. That would be a great tradition too. The only thing I'll add in terms of traditions, which I didn't add, Scott, which I know you'll appreciate, is before I met Carl, in my late 20s, early mid 20s, every Halloween I would go see Guar.
Okay.
At the Vic Theater.
Oh no!
And that was also and then I met my wife, and that tradition ended abruptly, because my wife was not into Guar. Yes. And if you don't know who Guar is, check him out on YouTube.
Check it out. That's all I got to do. Guar.
But going to Sleepy Hollow, that's legit. That's
I think most people don't realize it's just literally, take a train up from Manhattan, from Grand Central, and boom, it's Tarrytown, right? And I knew that. It describes it in the book, but I didn't think it actually Sleepy Hollow. And there's Sleepy Hollow High School. There's everything. Yeah. Once you kind of realize that the whole town.
Dude, I bet you they have a wicked Halloween party.
Oh yeah. Oh dude, it's right now.
I bet they have an awesome one
right now this weekend. I mean, the Ichabod Crane is lurking all around. gas stations and
Headless horsemen
yeah, oh
everywhere.
dude, yeah, they're just like they're at the local Waffle House and like
At the IHOP,
oh dude, for
having pumpkin
sure.
spice lattes.
Yeah, which
That's
one's
the best.
Ichabod tonight? But anyways, well, listen, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Yeah, we've been waiting to do this episode here, and John and I've been like,
Yeah.
okay, man, it's coming tonight. We got to do it.
Yeah.
But listen, hey, everyone, happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween, everybody.
All right, we'll see you. We'll see you next week.
Take care.